you, Frank. Tēnā koutou te whānau o Unitarians o Tamaki Makoto. Tēnā koutou nā manahiri. No mai, haere mai, me ki tēnei whare karakia o te atua. Ko Ted Zorn, toko ingoa. No Charleston, South Carolina, USA, aho. E noho ana aho ke Tamaki Makoto. Ma te kimi ka kite, ma te kite ka mohio, ma te mohio ka marama. No reira, e rorangatira ma, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome all, church, whānau, and visitors to this place of worship, virtual and physical. A space made sacred by our coming together today and by Auckland Unitarians coming here together for nearly 124 years now. Welcome to those joining us remotely, to those here in the building, and to those watching the recording at a later time. Those visiting with us for the first time, we're grateful that you've chosen to be here with us. To our cherished members and regular attendees, thank you for returning to continue in our shared journey in the pursuit of meaning, compassion, and transformation. I hope those in the church today will stay after the service to join us for morning tea. It is our sacrament of hospitality. My name is Ted Zorn, and I'll be leading our service today, the theme of which is faith, science, and the wonder of creation. This service was Kate Lewis's idea, and Kate will deliver the main talk later in the service. The whakatoki I used in my opening translates to seek and discover and know and become enlightened, which seemed fitting for this service. Also, the prelude piece that Frank played was, as I mentioned, Elements Variation by Ludovico Einaudi. So I have to, just as an aside, thank Frank because I've asked him to play a piece by Ludovico Einaudi 2 services in a row, which I've led now, and so I think he gets the idea. I really like him. So he offered to play not only the one I asked him to play, but 2 other pieces by Ludovico Einaudi today. So thank you very much, Frank. And he does it so beautifully as well. So Einaudi is an Italian composer and pianist who actually is coming to Auckland for a concert in January. The name of the song that Frank played, Elements, or Elements Variation, and the album by the same name was inspired by the 4 classical elements of air, water, earth, and fire. And Einaudi said the album is a collection of pieces inspired by nature's elements, mathematical and scientific elements, musical forms, and works of art. And the title track, Elements, which he played, epitomizes his exploration of organic growth. My opening words are by American philosopher Loyal Rue, R-U-E, who coined the term religious naturalist to describe his faith. The universe is a single reality, one long, sweeping, spectacular process of interconnected events. The universe is not a place where evolution happens. It is the evolution happening. It is not a stage on which drama unfolds. It is the unfolding drama itself. If there were a candidate for a universal story, it must be this story of cosmic evolution. The story shows us in the deepest possible sense that we are all sisters and brothers, fashioned from the same stellar dust, energized by the same star, nourished by the same planet, endowed with the same genetic code, threatened by the same evils. This story, more than any other, humbles us before the magnitude and complexity of creation. Like no other story, it bewilders us with the improbability of our existence, astonishes us with the interdependence of all things, and makes us feel grateful for the lives we have. And not the least of all, it inspires us to express our gratitude to the past by accepting a solemn and collective responsibility for the future. Kate, could you please come up and light the chalice? As we light the chalice today, let us pause and reflect on the burning flame. Look at it closely. See its glow and movement. Science teaches us how it burns, how heat transforms wax into light, how molecules dance in the air. Yet knowing these things make the flame no less beautiful, warm, or wondrous. Rather, understanding can deepen our awe. Let us honor our curiosity and that of our fellow humans who pursued the knowledge we have underlying what I've explained. May the transformation of the flame from the cold, still candle and match to the radiant glow and warmth of the flame remind us of the transformation of curiosity to insight and insight to knowledge, and the transformation of ourselves and our world illuminated by the light of truth. I invite you to say with me the covenant of our congregation, words of which are on the screen. Love is a doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God. My reading for today is a poem by Marco Gleiser, a Brazilian-American physicist and astronomer. He's also the Appleton Professor of Natural Philosophy and a Professor of Physics and Astronomy at Dartmouth College. The poem is simply called Life, but with an exclamation point. Life. There were no witnesses to what was about to happen. There was water and there was earth. Inert matter rained from the skies. Heat scorched the land, dried the seas. The world was aglow. Smoke choked the air, sometimes. What air was this? What land? What seas? Tremblers rumbled the roiling soil, mixing. Waves lapped the land, mixing. Some things sank, others bubbled up. Then a time of cooling, ephemeral space. A surge of combinations and reactions, slime in motion, accidental shapes, random splitting, a chaining of stuffs, an attraction of likes, a growth that outgrew others, encompassed others, circling and twisting, it became two. And so it was. Two became four and grew. Life began, or something like it. Not like us, but us nonetheless. So I now invite Kate to come up and deliver the main address.
Kia ora koutou. The topic today is faith, science, and the wonder of creation. And I'll talk about why I'm doing it in that talk. So the 23rd of October, this week, Thursday, was a big one for at least two reasons. One was the mega strike of workers across many careers and across New Zealand. The second reason was that Thursday marked the beginning of the 6,029th year since the creation of the world, according to Bishop James Ussher. He published his scientific treatise to that effect in 1650, October 22nd, 4004 BC, in the evening, say 6 o'clock, is when the universe was created. Thus, 23 October 4004 BC was the first day. There was some controversy about this date, even in Ussher's time. Other scholars, including Isaac Newton, came up with dates ranging around 4000 BC for the beginning of the universe. Counts of attempted chronologies suggested there were up to 300 different opinions of the Earth's age, as trying to figure it out was not unusual among scholars of the time. Today I'm going to talk about the history of the Earth and how we think about time. These have implications for the choices we make, in particular around science today. So for some background, I did 2 undergraduate majors. I was a history of religion major, or comparative religions, and then geology. I continued with geology for a master's degree and then a PhD, years of teaching at university, and now do geological work for Auckland Council. Geology is the scientific study of the Earth, and it has multiple variations, or it's an umbrella term, including, the history of the Earth as revealed through rocks and minerals, processes such as plate tectonics, which lead to mountains, earthquakes, volcanoes, erosion, beach formation, and our natural resources such as oil and geothermal fluids. Geology gives me a sense of awe, which I haven't lost in 30 years of studying it. The amazing thing about geology for me is that it is 4-dimensional, and it involves all scales from microscopic to global. When students start studying geology, they face two major difficulties of imagination: 3-dimensional space and the 4th dimension of time. In both cases, the scales are hard to grasp, the vastness of continental movement and 4.5 billion years of history since the Earth formed. With respect to 3-dimensional space, the use of computers has transformed geological education from building models with wood and cardboard to visualizing any process on a screen in 3D. However, it is still a challenge to go out into the field and look at a cliff and make the intellectual jump from the view of the face of a cliff to what it says about all the rocks between it and the neighboring hill. If you can imagine a cliff, the layers, say it has sedimentary layers in it, the layers look like stripes, but they may go hundreds of kilometers into the landscape behind the cliff and have been pushed and pulled to form the mountains and valleys of a region. One of the clues about the process of plate tectonics, which is the moving of the continents and oceans around the planet, was that the distinctive layers of coal and fossils could be seen in the landscapes of the eastern coast of South America and the western coast of Africa. They were separated when the Atlantic Ocean formed, but the rocks help us see how what is now 2 continents used to be 1. With respect to time, geologists use creative means to trigger the imagination because 4.5 billion is way too large a number for us to imagine and comprehend. One analogy is a clock representing geologic time, in which humans come in at 11:59 and 59 seconds. When I went to my son's primary school to talk about geology, we unrolled an entire toilet paper roll in the gym and calculated how many millions of years were on each square. Plants come in near the end, then animals, and then people hanging on the fringe of the scruffy fibers at the end of the roll. Which brings me back to Bishop Ussher and the age of the Earth as seen from the 17th and 18th centuries. It's a big difference between 6,000 years and 4.5 billion. So doing this talk, I learned a lot about Bishop Ussher and his contemporaries and changed my mind entirely about how I viewed them. The main thing I learned is that the scholars who calculated the age of the Earth at that time were the scientists of their time. They consulted the Bible, but also records from other people and places, basically every record from all existing societies that they could get their hands on. One historian of earth science, Martin Rudwick, wrote that by far the greater part of Ussher's evidence, like that of the other chronologists, came not from the Bible, but from ancient secular records. So there is a direct line of inquiry from how Bishop Ussher worked to how geology is done today. You get data, you work through it, you draw conclusions from what you find. We should not poo-poo them, those guys in the 17th and 18th centuries, because they used the Bible as a historical source. As far as they knew, those records were data. Now it is 2025, 400 years from when Ussher and Newton were working. Science has come a long way, and we all know that science is under attack from people at all levels of education and power. As of 2014, it was estimated that 10% of Americans, which is around 31 million people, believed that the universe and the earth were less than 10,000 years old. Less than 10, consistent with Ussher's work. In New Zealand, there are not good statistics about this. About 30% of people identify as Christian. Of course, the number that takes the Bible as literal truth is way fewer than that. However, having said that, I found several churches in Nelson, Christchurch, Gore, Hamilton, and 12 in Auckland who have invited ministers from Creation Ministries International to talk about the truth of creationism, and that's only over the next few months. So that's like 20 lectures over the next few months on creationism in New Zealand churches. And of course, these tend to be the people who have taken Bishop Ussher's work as gospel. Gospel, get it? Here's an image prepared by creationism.com. Oh yeah, sorry Ted, no warning on that, but Ted's gonna show a picture. So definitely don't even try to read the words. Just know that this is a picture. So the title is Timeline of the Bible, 4000 BC to 100 AD. And the red, and then the bar, the big blue bar at the bottom, maybe you can read, but it says Genesis. So that timing from 4000 BC to, I don't know, maybe around 1000 is all Genesis. And those red bars on the left and the light blue bars in the middle, those are all the names of people and events. So that's what, this is the portrayal of Bishop Ussher's work as put into visuals by someone at creationism, or someone, a creationist, basically, creationism.com. And you see that part of the reason this works is because the lifespans in the beginning were 900 years, right? So each of those red bars is someone's lifespan, and they're all around the 900, 800 year mark. And then as time goes on, the lifespans get shorter. And I'm sure that's explained somewhere, but I didn't look for it. And then so very, eventually you get to, you see that cross in the bottom right. So that little tiny bit on the right is the New Testament. Yeah, so I guess we'll leave it at that. And actually the other interesting thing in there is that at 20, I wrote it down, the flood has a date as well. Noah's flood, 2348 BC. So that's in there too. The flood becomes really significant for creationism because people use the Grand Canyon and various big things of sedimentary rocks and fossils. Okay, we can take that off now. So just to show, you can go get a visual. Now, back to what I was saying. Everything on that image is from the Bible, which is actually not consistent with what Ussher and his contemporary chronologists did. So the people who made that image used data that the people who did the science, Ussher and co., used data that wasn't biblical or religious, and I suspect that many of them would have embraced the progress of science through the centuries. The fact that so many people now use their work to define the history of the earth means that modern fundamentalists are not only denying scientific advancements of the last 400 years, but they're also misusing the science that people were doing 400 years ago, which I find really astonishing. Short earthers embrace the idea that the formation of the earth and everything on it was done by God, a single and all-powerful deity, in 6 days. And actually 6 days, 24 hours each. This is the fundamental precept of creationism and is in direct conflict with what science has taught us about species evolution over hundreds of millions of years. The denial that science has anything to contribute to our lives beyond the Bible has direct implications for denial of climate change and the efficacy of vaccines. One of the main arguments that creationists use, so actually, and I'll say that, when I started this, I told Ted, because of Bishop Ussher, we have anti-vaxxers. and now I've really come around to believe that that is not true, that it's because we have fundamentalist believers who deny science is why we have problems with science denial, not because of those guys 400 years ago. Where was I? One of the main, one of the main arguments that creationists use against evolution is that the complexity of life couldn't possibly be a product of random chance. And in fact, one of the speakers from the Ministry of Creationism, or whatever it's called, said in his bio that his mother was a science teacher, and he was a science major at university. He became an atheist, and then when he adopted children and was raising children, he could not believe that these children were the result of random chance. And that is what sent him back to the church, and now he's so fervent that he's a lecturer for the creationist, it's a global creationist organization, which, we can talk about Darwinism and random chance, not here, but anyway, it was just quite an extraordinary thing that I thought that, that his children aren't the result of random chance seemed like a very strange thing to think. Having said that, for these people, because it's not random chance, it must have been created by a divine hand. One thing the creationist movement has done to try to make the message more palatable is to rename it intelligent design, which I'm sure you've heard. The main message coming from the movement is that science and faith are at odds with each other, and we can only have one and not the other. I do not believe or agree with this premise, and it's what has motivated me to give this talk. I believe science and spirituality absolutely can coexist, and in fact, I believe that studying geology has given me more opportunities to feel awe and wonder and spiritual inspiration than I would have had otherwise. I think that the process of evolution, for which millions of years is required in most, although not all cases, I'm probably at some point in your education you learned about fruit flies who can evolve with, generations in days. That process is way, way more interesting than if a divine being had created it in a flick of a wrist for me. One of the reasons I appreciate Unitarianism is that one of the principles that we honor is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And with respect to science, This is hand in hand with one of our new values. Transformation understands that we must adapt to the changing world. Openness to change is fundamental to Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. I'll close with a quote from Carl Sagan, whose skill with science communication made him a rare scientist who had a popular following and successfully engaged non-scientists with wonder for the natural world. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined, is surely spiritual. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both. Thank you.
I'm going to borrow and adapt an idea from Barbara and Karn's lovely flower communion service last week and have a two-part meditation. So for the first part, I'd like for you to get comfortable and try to find stillness as Frank plays a meditative piece of music, again by Ludovico Einaudi. And I show some images on the screen related to today's service, images of the universe, the earth, and the beginnings of life on earth. I'll tell you about the second part, but it will be a silent meditation when we get to the end of that. So for now, get comfortable, relax, enjoy the music and images. Don't think too much about them. Just listen, observe, and feel. Frank? So now I invite you to close your eyes, or if you prefer, soften your gaze and sit quietly. Try to find stillness and be present, perhaps by focusing on your breath. And I'll call you back to the room in about 3 minutes. When you're ready, you can maybe wiggle your toes and your fingers and open your eyes. Come back to the room. My closing words are an excerpt from Ursula Goodenough's book called The Sacred Depths of Nature: How Life Has Emerged and Evolved. Naturalistic understandings greatly expand and deepen the parameters of spiritual experience. I can look at the sunset and thrill to its outrageous beauty, then toggle to marveling at the nuclear fusions generating the helium and the heat. Then switch to gratitude for the sunlight-driven photosynthesis that generates the oxygen that I'm breathing. And then become infused with joy that we have such a spectacular star. Naturalistic understandings also expand and deepen the parameters of our moral sensibilities to include eco-morality, which can be thought of as an enlargement of our moral vision, such that we come to care not just about the well-being of family and village and tribe, but also about the rest of the natural world. Extinguish the chalice. Join me in reciting the words to Extinguishing the Chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. The question, I tried to make this a useful question. What is your experience of how science, religion, and spirituality have intersected in your life? So basically, what's the, which is sort of the theme of the topic today.